right, we are back for season 4 of A Toast to Truth. And I'm so excited because this season is going to bring a lot of transparency, a lot of raw honestness, and most importantly, a lot of lessons that I hope you learn through my experience so that you don't have to go through them yourself. So, A Toast to Truth is where I share the mental, financial, and emotional frustrations of being an entrepreneur. This is season 4, episode 1, Sabotage to Change. So, before we dive into today's episode, let me ask you this. How do you embrace change? Now, season 4 is all about changes, transitions, endings, and a new beginning, plus a special episode where I'm going to do more of a follow-up from season 2, episode 12, where I talked about being the angry Black woman myth, and I'm going to talk about what I feel is a really great part 2 to that. So stay tuned this season. It's going to be hot. Okay. So, a lot has happened in my professional life and career since the beginning of this podcast. A Toast to Truth is my way of sharing with each of you my perspective, experience, and knowledge being an entrepreneur. We all know I have a distinct opinion, but I also have many lessons to share. As an educator, teaching is just what I do. It's what I do naturally. So I do it no matter what is going on. And sometimes I even do it without even noticing that I'm doing it. It's my earthly gift. So I took all that I have learned, experienced, and witnessed to bring you the Truth Confidant that officially launched January 2017. Okay, so this episode will be about the changes I went through over the last 5.5 years to get here. Okay, so these changes were made whether I wanted them to happen or not. I say I started this journey by force in learning, in resigning from public school teaching, and I couldn't find another job in 2011. Okay, now in 2017, it seems all of my learning was to prepare me for my biggest challenge yet. To teach mental detox in a society that thrives, pushes, and encourages the symptoms of stress daily. What does that have to do with you? I first had to learn how to run a business before I could run the business I was meant to start. Yeah, that hit me too. Let me say it again. I first had to learn how to run a business before I could run the business I was meant to start. Okay, so your first couple of businesses may be your on-the-job training to prepare you to start, build, run, manage, and grow the business you were destined to create and possibly sell in the future. The road here was not easy. It had more bumps and bruises than I care to count. In fact, I think I literally stopped counting because it was so many. I just find the lessons through all of it and I keep it moving. Okay, so change is one constant in our world, yet is what we fear most. The changes I made were, number 1, maturity. Let's be honest, sometimes we have very immature actions, very immature thoughts, very immature responses. And so if you are an entrepreneur, you are a professional, you are in business, whatever the case may be, you have to have some level of maturity when you handle certain situations. And let's just say at the recording of this podcast, I have really had to look at that particular aspect, maturity, and really focus on it because I have been put in some pretty stressful situations the last couple of weeks. And through it all, I tried maybe one instance I wasn't there 100%, but I tried to have a mature response and mature reaction to the situations that I found myself in. Okay. Also, an understanding of business fundamentals. Oh my God. I took business classes in undergrad and graduate school, but that wasn't my major. Business was not my major for any of those, but I did take some business classes. I did case studies. I just never paid attention because honestly, I did not see myself going into business so soon. What do I mean by that? I thought I was going to teach all these years, save all this money, be 100% debt free, and then I will start a business. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that was a genius move, good idea, or whatever the case may be. But it happened where I became an entrepreneur a lot faster than I thought. So here I am learning the business fundamentals on the job as I ran my very first official business. Now, I've done other business ventures throughout, to make money. But it wasn't anything where I spent a lot of time or energy on. Not like what I did with Women Are Game Changers, where I spent thousands of dollars to try to build that company up, where I worked as hard as I could to make something happen. And I did not get the traction or the results that I had hoped I would get. Eventually, like I said, I will talk more about this later in the podcast, but I am shutting that business down, and I will talk more about that throughout this season, because sometimes you just have to know when change is necessary. And the sabotage to that change is I kept the business running longer than I should have, knowing I wasn't doing all that I possibly could to get that business into the position that it should be in. Okay. What else did I learn? Preparedness. Oh my goodness. I thought I was a prepared person. However, I wasn't as prepared as I could have been running a business. And I learned a lot. And I've shared it over the last 3 seasons of this podcast. And I will share even more later in this episode. My work ethic. I used to be a workaholic. Like when I taught public school, I was not leaving the school until 8:30, 9 o'clock almost every night. I was doing everything. Like you come into my classroom, everything was in order, lesson plans done, activities on top of activities, everything. Like I put everything into my job. And then when I left, I felt so depleted that when I started Women Are Game Changers, I don't even believe I was given 60%. I really don't even think I was given 50%. I was just so depleted from what I had given to teaching and leaving the public school realm. My work ethic has changed. Now I have created a work ethic that works for me, that creates a little bit of a balance where I am giving to the truth confidant, but at the same time, I'm not killing myself in the process. Okay. Money management. We talked about that in season 2 with my good friend Jasmine Powers. We talked about finances, but I'm going to talk a little bit about what I have learned in money management later in this podcast. And the most important change, well, I wouldn't say most important change, but a change that definitely brought a lot of emotions was who belongs in my circle. Very, very, very emotional part of the process is who belongs in your circle. It's not so much mental as it is emotional. Okay. But most importantly, why keeping my emotions in check matters. So I am going to explore each of these in a little bit more detail after I take this sip. I help entrepreneurs and educators protect their peace by preventing stress and frustration from taking over. Each week in the Truth Confidant with Vernetta R. Freeney Facebook group, I share information, resources, and weekly lessons as it relates to mental detox. In order to have peace in your life, you must know the correct action to take to get it, preserve it, and prevent anything from taking it away. Request to join today and start your process to a peace-filled life. See you in there, the Truth Confidant with Vernetta R. Freeney Facebook group. Okay, so I am back and I'm going to go through each of these changes that I want to make note of and share with you lessons that I've learned, experiences that I've gone through, and just overall my emotional state, really, because change is a very emotional process. And I really want you to understand that business is an emotional thing. A lot of people say, there's no crying in business. It's not emotional. It's all business. It is emotional. And we are allowed to have our emotions run their course, but we need to keep our emotions in check, which I will get to in this podcast. Okay, so let's start with maturity. So I have a history of throwing fits when I don't get my way. I'm not an only child. I'm not spoiled in any regards, but I always felt that if I wanted something, I needed to have it. And if I didn't have it, I was not going to be happy about not getting it. So I don't know how my parents put up with me, honestly. If I was my parent, I would lose my mind. So I commend my parents for putting up with me. Now, as I got older, that attitude stayed with me. And it stayed with me way longer than it should have. And I've even had, this guy I was talking to, he was like, "You act a little spoiled." And I'm just looking at him like, what's the big deal about that? If I want something, I want it. In the same breath, he also mentioned that he liked how I was persistent to get what I wanted. But I needed to be more cognizant of my approach to get what I wanted. I needed to be more mindful of my behavior as I worked to get what I wanted. Okay, so as far as maturity, I would say over the last year of me really working to build the Truth Confidant into something, it officially launched January 2017, but to build it into something, I can say it was a lot of mature days where I had to hold my tongue. I could not verbally respond to people in the way that I probably would have normally responded. I had to watch my words. I had to really put thought into responses before I gave a response. And so it was a lot. And I'm not saying it as a bad thing, but I'm saying it really helped me see that everything that happened to me did not deserve an emotional, theatrical reaction. And in business, I needed to leave the drama at home. I really did. I didn't need to go off on people. I don't need to be petty with everyone all the time, but I do need to be able to stand up for myself and for my business. And I need to keep people in check, but there's a way to do it without me looking like an immature, spoiled brat. And over the last 5.5 years, I am learning that I can still speak my mind. I can still defend myself. And I can do it in a way that's not emotional. I can say what needs to be said and leave it there. I don't have to have a big emotional theatrical show, and I don't need to make it known on social media as well. So there have been many, many situations where I have dealt with in private, or, dealing with the people who were involved in that situation, and it was taken care of and I moved on. So that's a big win for me. That's why I said it was number one, because I know I can act spoiled at times. But hey, I'm a woman, and every woman wants every now and again to just have everyone do what we say, when we say it, how we say it, and don't ask questions. Or maybe that's just me. But generally speaking, I would do most things for myself. But I want you to really understand that you can speak your mind. You can stand up for yourself. There's just a way to do it without the emotional, theatrical drama performance that we are, quote unquote, stereotypically known for. You have to be able to calmly handle the situation and then walk away. To me, if you're able to say what needs to be said, do what needs to be done, and walk away, that's all that matters. You don't need to continue to prove it to yourself or to anyone else. It's done. Leave it there. Okay. The next change that came over the last 5.5 years, understanding business fundamentals. Ooh, okay. So cash flow, revenue, income, sales, expenses, loss, profit and loss statements, taxes, marketing, how to sell, how to close a sale, so much. And that's not even all of it. That's just what I know off the top of my head that you should know. That's a lot, right? So fundamentally, how do you run a business? Well, number one, your business needs to be legal. You need to have a DBA, doing business as, with your county, or you need to register with your state. I'm going to give this free advice out for you people who live in Harris County, Texas. It is $16 or $17, don't remember the exact number, $16 or $17 to get your DBA, because $1 is to pay them for being a notary, the county clerk. You go to the county clerk's office, you have them fill it out. It takes probably less than 10 minutes. If you go through the state to get an LLC in the state of Texas, it is $300. But please consult a business attorney to help you figure out which entity that you should go through, because it will affect your taxes. Trust me, learn the hard way. Not having the right entity or getting an EIN number where I accidentally click the wrong entity means I'm going to pay a difference in taxes. And I asked my CPA, well, how can I fix it? Can I just go ahead and change it? She said, no, you have to dissolve the whole entity and start again. So yeah, business fundamentals. Know what you are doing before you just put yourself out there. Putting up an Instagram or Facebook page is not business. That is one aspect of marketing, but it is not running a business. Running a business means you actually know what you need to do to protect your business, because I have had threats of people suing me for different situations, and when we resolved it, came to find out I was in the right. The person that I had worked with or gotten information from had wronged them. I keep track of everything. So I was able to prove, and then they had to go after another person. On the flip side, I have had to threaten to sue people for using Women Are Game Changers, which is trademark. Even if the business is closing, I still own that trademark. So people need to understand, I worked hard to build that name. I paid a lot to have that name. So you are not going to get to profit from that name. So I had to register that business, get a trademark, which is a 2-year process. Thank you to the attorney I worked with, who was patient, who worked with me, and we did it. So happy about that. But that's another business fundamental. go and trademark your information. Go and protect what you are building, what you are creating. Okay. Another business fundamental that I will say that I'm still working on, and I'm excited because I'm going to the Traffic Sales and Profit Conference in June of this year with Lamar Tyler, is sales. Like, I make money, but I don't make the amount of money that I really know I should. And so that is my focus this year, is to become better at sales and to work with people who do it very well. So that's why I'm going to that conference. But essentially, with business fundamentals, I've realized that a book is not going to teach you everything. Sitting in a class is not going to teach you everything. Action, trial and error, actually putting the work behind the theories is going to let you know what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Because how I ran Fusion Tour and how I was able to get sold out stops, sell out for the ad campaigns, make money from that, is not the same way that I need to work for the Truth Confidant. And I learned that last year. I learned that the hard way because I was trying to do the same tactics that worked for me once, but they weren't working for me again. That made me realize that each business has its own structure and it follows some of the same fundamentals, but the practices have to be tweaked specifically for that type of business. So I literally had to take time and sit down and really look at everything to understand what was working, what wasn't working, cut my losses, let go of things that were costing me money, that weren't bringing in money, and, bite the bullet and not care that what other people may say about me affect the decisions that I needed to make. Business fundamentals, one of them needs to be, don't allow your perception of what other people think about you affect the decisions you make. I know that's not technically a business fundamental, but it needs to be one, because I have made many a decision concerning my business based on what I thought other people would say or react to what I would do. So don't make that same mistake I did. Okay, preparedness. Okay, for preparedness, the change that I had to make was not actually being over prepared. In business, it's not like running a classroom. Like, I can't have everything planned out and then force it to stick that way. I needed to have a plan, but also be able to adapt and have some flexibility in whatever trends or changes were happening at the time. So I needed to be prepared for more than one situation. I needed to be prepared in a sense where I would go in one place or one direction, and if I needed to switch, I needed to have things in place to allow me to make that shift without losing too much along the way. And many a time, I would be going in one direction and needed to change, and I was not prepared for the change, and I would lose traction. I may have lost sales. I may have lost, influence. It was a lot of loss that happens when you change directions and you don't have anything that will kind of bump you back on the road when you have to make that change. Another way to be prepared in business is to actually declutter the amount of information that you are bringing in. What do I mean by that? There are so many coaches, so many classes, so many people putting information out. You need to focus on one thing and go and listen to maybe 2 or 3 people, no more than 3 people, and really work for about 90 days getting that one thing together. That's being prepared. I know how to start a business because I took the time to know how to get a DBA, how to register. I have a CPA. I know the fundamentals of that. I took the time to legally protect myself. I have a few attorneys I work with depending on the situation that I'm involved in, contracts or intellectual property, or protecting myself against a lawsuit. I am prepared for that. To be able to market or brand, I have people in place that I can work with to help me create the look and the image and the feel and the voice. I am prepared for that. But I did it one at a time. So now my focus is on sales, and I am preparing for that by only listening to a couple of people and following through with the information I receive from those couple of people. Okay, like I stated, I am going to the Traffic Sales and Profit Conference in June in Atlanta. So that is my preparedness. I am focused. The first half of 2017 is focused on learning how to improve my sales. That is what I am being prepared to do right now. You have to find one thing that you are struggling with and prepare yourself to make that a non-issue anymore. Okay? Next change that I had to work with is my work ethic. When I first started, I would wake up at 12 o'clock, eat lunch, hang out on social media, get on quote unquote work at about 5 o'clock, get off at 7 because my TV shows were coming on, watch my TV till about 10, 11 o'clock at night, maybe do a little bit more work till midnight, go to sleep, and wake up at 12 o'clock the next day. That is how I ran. That is how I ran Women Are Game Changers. Maybe the first year. I'm not going to lie, the first year. Unless I had a client something that morning, I would always schedule client meetings or events or whatever in the morning. So I would force myself to get up. But if I didn't have to work with a client, I would sleep until noon. So that's not a very productive work ethic. Let's just be honest. A lot of people feel that money's just going to come in. You have a business, you put it out there, money's just going to come in. No, I had to really understand the hustle and the grind of business. And then I went years where I was constantly out, constantly hustling. It worked. It got my name out there. I got clients. I was able to sell out Stops for Fusion Tour. However, it was a very unhealthy way because I never put any time for rest or for self-care. And I definitely did not focus on self-preservation when I was out there hustling and grinding. So now, 2017, I know how to work effectively. I know that I can work for maybe 90 minutes straight before I get distracted. So during that 90 minutes, I know what I'm going to do, and then I do it. And I probably do 2 of those a day on the days that I'm not teaching. If I am in the classroom and I teach 9 hours a day, 4 days a week, 4 hours on one day. So I'm in the classroom 40 hours a week. How do I still get stuff done? I have 1 hour when I come home in the evening, and that's work time because I know I'm not going to be able to do 90 minutes mentally. I'm already drained from teaching. So I have 1 hour every night where I get stuff done, and I read during my breaks at the class at the school. I do a lot of my heavy lifting on Saturday and Sunday if I'm not at an event or hosting an event. So I have been able to really make sure that I don't lose too much work or progress by keeping a schedule. And my journal, the Truth Confidant journal, I actually use my own journal. That is how I stay focused. I say, this is what I need to accomplish this week by this date. This is what I need to do, and I do it. Okay. So work ethic. I had to find a work ethic where I got stuff done and I'm not sleeping all day or on Netflix. Okay. But Netflix is one of my self-care activities. So I'm not going to lie. There are days, not a lot, but there are days where I will just binge watch Netflix because I need to mentally just let go so that I can focus when it's time for me to work. Money management. Money management. I probably need to say that until I get $1 million, but I had a goal last year that by December 31st, 2016, I was going to be 100% debt free and Women Are Game Changers because I was going to close that business. And on December 30th, 2016, I paid off all of my business debt. All of it. I was so focused on that. I created a budget and I stuck to it. And I became 100% debt free in business. I learned through that experience of creating that debt, because I did create it based on a lot of poor money decisions, because I was just hustling, trying to get my name out there, putting money everywhere, and not really paying attention to see if that money was actually going to return to me. Now, if I am going to invest in something, because I'm not spending money, I'm only going to invest. If I'm going to invest, it needs to be something where I am going to 100% wholeheartedly put everything into to make sure that I get that money back. Now, I have drastically cut my expenses with this new business. I have dramatically cut the amount of money I was spending to put myself out there. And I'm being a little bit more wise in how I spend money for business. I'm being more cautious in vetting out people and things and opportunities, because at the end of the day, when you put money out and it doesn't come back to you, you can only blame yourself. You can only be upset at yourself. And I don't want to be upset at myself for making stupid decisions, because they are stupid decisions. You're just giving your money away without paying attention to who it is and what they're going to do with it. My money management tip for you is to create a budget based on your expenses that you know you will have, and then you set a target to bring in that amount of money. That's just break even. Okay, this isn't about you getting to 6 figures or 7 figures. This is you trying to make sure that you break even so that you don't take a loss, so that you're not in the red, so you are not struggling when it comes to Black Friday trying to make all your sales, so you are not in the red at the end of the year. You really want to pay attention to the expenses that you have. Are they even necessary? Like for podcast hosting, I was paying a monthly fee, not paying attention. Then I thought about it. Why am I paying this much every month when I do my podcast by seasons? I'm not having to upload episodes every single month. So and with the hosting that I have, I can change my amount each month depending on what it is. So I will, when I have a season, I will go up so I have the storage space. After that, I will go back down to the minimum so that I only have it to host and not to upload. And that's going to save money. So that's me being able to say, okay, for this short amount of time, the price is going to go up for this, but I'm going to go back down. That's how you manage your money. You really see, do I need to pay this amount every single month? If not, can I go lower for X amount of months to save some money? Okay. Now, who belongs in my circle? I mean, I'm not going to lie. I have cried over losing people in my circle because I really cared about them. There are some people that have left my circle, and I don't have a feeling about them either way. I just felt that their negative energy was not something I needed anymore. But the people who I lost that I really adore, I don't even know what happened. We just grew apart. We just grew in different paths, I guess. And my thing is, I wish them all well, and I want them to do extremely well. And I pray that one day our paths will cross again and we will be able to reconnect. But I had to learn that we all go through different changes at different times in our lives. And the changes that I was going through emotionally in my personal life, financially in my business life, and mentally, just period, I was really not at a place where some of my other people in my circle were. Like their businesses were moving, they were going, and I was in this hole, and I feel that I'm still crawling and clawing my way out of this hole. And I can't blame them for wanting to move on while I'm sitting here in my own little purgatory. Now, I know I was negative Nelly at a few years ago. However, I've mentally worked on myself the last 2 years. I have physically changed myself, and I am emotionally stronger than I was 2-3 years ago. But during the process of getting to this place of peace, there was a lot of shedding that I had to do. And in that process, it was a very ugly process. In that process, I know some people probably saw things that they just didn't want to handle or deal with. And I totally respect them for being there when they were. I will never forget them for that. But when you have to figure out who belongs in your circle, you also have to realize that when people leave and walk away from you, that part of your process is something that they don't need to be a part of. That's not part of their journey. And we can't force them to stay. Trust me, I've tried to force people to stay because I felt I needed them. In reality, they didn't need that emotion. They didn't need that experience. And I have to respect that. Just like you have to respect letting go of people who are no longer serving their purpose with you. So who belongs in my circle? Who belongs in your circle? That's up to where you are currently in your life and then where you want to go. Currently, I'm all about peace. And that's all I want for the next 50, 100 years of my life. Okay? So if you are not about peace, if you are not about laughter, if you are not about being happy, even in the most stressful, tense situations, then I am going to have to say, no, I can't allow you in my space. On the flip side, there are people that I've let go because they had negativity or they did something that I felt wronged me. And as painful as it was to let them go, I needed to move on with my journey in one direction, and they needed to go in a different direction. And how it all transpired really goes back to what I was talking about, being mature. And in some of those cases, maturity was not a focus point, and it just left in tattered pieces for those relationships. However, when I'm looking at things now with those people who are in my circle and the situation that transpired between myself and those people, I realized that even though it may not have ended on a healthy term, it ended and I needed to let it go, because no matter what, the situation itself, not how it ended, but the situation that brought us to the point where we had to reevaluate our being in each other's life, that situation itself is what I'm thinking about and what I'm looking at, and that's what I don't want in my life. So, with that being said, you do have to make decisions, but you also need to be mature about how you leave those situations. There are many situations that have been left unfinished in my business life, and no matter what I did or what the other person did, they're just going to be left that way, and I have to accept that. I can't force a pretty picture. I can't force a pretty ending. It just is. And that's something I had to come to grips with. And we all will, at one point in our lives, have things leave in a way that just is unfashionable, and in a way that we're not able to say, okay, all the balls are in the right holes. It's just not going to always happen that way. And we have to be able to accept that. Last change that I've had to accept is keeping my emotions in check. So through everything I've shared, keeping my emotions in check has been the most important thing. And it is definitely what I would say has made me the strongest. Being able to see that it's okay for me to be upset, okay for me to be sad, okay for me to be angry. But what I do with those emotions concerning that situation is the most important factor. It's not about the person. It should never be about the person. It should always be about the situation. You don't want to hurl insults and you don't want to hurl words at a person that you probably will need in your life. Because if they are deeply hurt, they may walk away and no longer are in your circle. So you need to be able to keep your emotions in check. That's where mental detox comes in. If you have a mental detox strategy, when you are in those situations, you will be able to say, okay, let me breathe, let me walk away, let me think about a solution. Here's the solution. Let me implement the solution. And you're able to do all of this without being an emotional wreck in the process. So keeping my emotions in check is something that over the last 2 years, I have been able to handle many situations and not allow those situations to ruin me or to ruin the reputation that I am creating. Has my emotional outburst ruined some relationships? Yeah, that's part of what I talked about in Who Belongs in My Circle. That's also what I talked about in being mature. But at the same time, I have learned from those situations, and I have learned that it's okay for me to walk away from a situation, to think about what's happening, and then to come back with a solution and implement that solution. If anyone has a problem with me walking away from the situation, then I don't need to deal with that person, because I'm not going to be forced or coerced into coming up with a solution in the middle of stress, in the middle of tension. That's not going to be effective for me nor for the other person. And I just won't do it. Let's be honest, I'm not going to do it. So that is it for episode 1. So before we head out, I am going to give my final toast, and I'm going to do it a little different. I'm going to do it a little different for season 4. So for the final toast, I am going to give stress survival tips for season 4, because April is Stress Awareness Month. So here's your final toast for today. The spring out of stress tip is look at change as important as breathing. Without it, we won't move towards our destinies. Preventing it will cause us to deplete ourselves of opportunities. Change is good, but embrace the change and don't let the change you. So that is all I have for season 4, episode 1, Sabotage to Change. Do not let change sabotage your life, and do not sabotage the change that must be made in order for you to move forward in your life. I hope you come back for episode 2 and listen to all the past episodes of A Toast to Truth. All past episodes can be listen to on FernettaRFreeney.com.